If Arsenal signed Vinícius Júnior, they would not simply be buying a left winger, they would be changing the decision every opponent has to make against Bukayo Saka, because right now, teams know the temptation: shift towards Saka, crowd his space, block the inside lane, force Arsenal to find another route, but place Vinicius on the opposite wing, and that decision becomes dangerous. Move two defenders towards Saka and Vinicius gets space. Protect yourself against Vinicius, and Saka gets isolated against one defender. That is not just quality, that is tactical fear. But let's be accurate. Arsenal are exploring the possibility. The interest is at an early stage. There have been no club-to-club talks, so this is not a transfer announcement. It is a case about what the idea reveals. Would Vinicius merely improve Arsenal's left wing, or completely change how opponents defend their entire attack? That question, who do you double, is the heart of this case, because elite-wide players do more than beat defenders. They move defenses before they even touch the ball. Saka already creates that effect on Arsenal's right. Fullbacks hesitate, midfielders shift across, center-backs prepare for the inside run. The problem begins when opponents can send that extra protection without fearing the opposite wing enough. Vinicius would change that calculation. He has surpassed 20 goals in each of his last 5 seasons for Real Madrid. That does not guarantee the same output in England, but it proves that the threat is not theoretical. He can carry the ball, he can attack space, he can create separation, and he can finish. So if Arsenal had Saka on one side and Vinicius on the other, opponents could no longer build their entire defensive plan around one pressure point. The pitch would become wider, the choices would become uglier, and Saka could become even more dangerous without changing anything about his own game. This is why the Vinicius story is also a Saka story. Saka does not need another player standing beside him. He needs danger away from him. Arsenal's own numbers show how consistently productive Saka has become. He reached 100 Premier League goal involvements in his first 200 appearances. That level of influence naturally attracts defensive attention, but opponents should have to pay for giving him that attention. If they send a midfielder and a fullback towards Saka, the switch to the left has to become an emergency. Not a reset, not another safe possession phase. An emergency. Vinicius carries that reputation before receiving the ball, and reputation matters tactically. A defender does not wait for him to start running before dropping deeper. A midfielder does not leave the channel casually. A team has to prepare for the transition before it happens. That could give Saka more 1-versus-1 situations, more room inside, and fewer attacks where Arsenal's biggest threat begins with 2 defenders already waiting for him. But this is where we have to challenge the excitement, because signing 2 elite wingers does not automatically create a balanced attack. Vinicius likes receiving from the left. Saka is most dangerous from the right. That sounds perfect, but the structure between them still matters. Who connects the wings? Who feeds the striker? Who protects Arsenal when both wingers attack? Who accepts fewer touches when the game flows to the opposite side? And what happens to the players already competing on the left? There is also the financial reality. Vinicius is entering the final year of his Real Madrid contract, but that does not make the transfer cheap. His fee, salary, and status would reshape Arsenal's hierarchy. So the question cannot be, is Vinicius world-class? That is too easy. The serious question is whether Arsenal can add Vinicius without damaging the balance that allows Saka, the midfield, and the striker to function. Because a superstar can transform the attack, but the wrong structure can turn even 2 brilliant wings into separate islands. If Arsenal ever move beyond exploration and pursue this deal, they would be buying more than output. They would be buying intimidation, the ability to pin a fullback deeper, the ability to threaten a defense before the pass is played, the ability to turn a switch of play into a direct attack, and most importantly, the ability to stop opponents leaning towards Saka without consequence. That is what makes this idea so powerful. Vinicius would not have to replace Saka as Arsenal's main threat. He would make it harder for opponents to decide which threat matters most, and that changes the attack. Saka becomes harder to double. The striker faces a defense stretched across the full width. Odegaard has 2 genuine outlets rather than one obvious destination. Transitions become more dangerous. But this only works if Arteta builds connection between those threats. Two stars do not automatically make one attack. The system has to turn individual fear into collective punishment. So Arsenal's test is not simply whether the opportunity exists, it is whether the opportunity fits the plan. Does Vinicius make the left side independently dangerous? Yes. Does he punish teams for shifting towards Saka? In theory, absolutely. Could his presence create better central spaces for the striker and midfield runners? Yes. But can Arsenal manage the cost, the hierarchy, and the tactical balance? That is the harder part. Because this would not be a depth signing. It would not be a development signing. It would be a decision that changes Arsenal's attacking identity. And that is why the early interest matters even if the deal never happens. It tells us what Arsenal may believe the next level looks like. Not another useful option, a second attacker whom opponents are genuinely frightened to leave alone. So here is the verdict. Vinicius could change how teams defend Saka, not because Saka needs replacing, not because Arsenal need to move away from their right side, but because the best way to protect one elite threat is to create another threat opponents cannot ignore. Vinicius would give Arsenal danger on the opposite wing, 1-versus-1 power, transition threat, goals, and the reputation that forces defenders to make decisions before he even receives the ball. That could stop opponents shifting towards Saka so freely. It could stretch the pitch, open the center, and make Arsenal's attack much harder to trap. But the deal is not advanced. Arsenal are exploring the possibility. There have been no club-to-club talks, and the financial and tactical consequences would be enormous. So this case is not a prediction. It is a warning about what the idea represents. Arsenal may no longer be looking only for another left winger. They may be looking for the player who makes overloading Saka impossible without punishment. If Vinicius becomes that second fear, then every defensive choice carries a cost. Case closed. If you want Arsenal analysis that looks past the transfer headline and follows the evidence, this is exactly what Cannon Casefile is built for. The next case is already open.